We call her Mother Earth because she nurtures us and gives us everything we need, like food and resources. But did you know she also provides us with heat and energy? I am Chris Olems, coming to you from Ogun State, Nigeria. Welcome.
Thank you, Chris. Well, we'll be finding out more about that and loads of other stories on today's edition of Eco Africa. I am Sandra Twinoblio, right here in Kampala, Uganda. So get ready for the next 26 action-packed minutes. Here is what is coming up shortly. How people in Nigeria can earn money with agriculture without even owning any land. Why the Irish are giving up peat cutting. And how one man in Uganda is walking his way to a better environment. But first, let us start with some of that heat Mother Nature provides us, specifically geothermal energy. It is increasingly gaining attention as an environmentally friendly and sustainable alternative to fossil fuels.
That's true, Sandra. It's much easier to understand how a windmill works, but we've taken a closer look at the geothermal process. And with the aid of graphics, we're going to explain what's happening inside the earth.
No one in the world would have to freeze or do without electricity if we were to just use what's right under our feet, the extreme heat of the Earth's interior. The heat resides deep beneath the Earth's crust. Residual heat from the formation of the Earth 4.5 billion years ago. The deeper we drill, the hotter it gets, about 6,000 degrees Celsius in the Earth's core. So why not drill a hole and send heat up? At a depth of 4,000 meters, there's already water as hot as 160 degrees Celsius. The water remains liquid due to the high pressure, but can be converted into water vapor. It can drive a turbine, which then generates electricity. With the non-evaporated part, which is still around 90 degrees Celsius, buildings can be heated via a district heating network. Once the water has given off its heat, it is fed back into the rock layer from which it came via another pipe. This is called deep geothermal energy. But there are some difficulties. First of all, you have to find the right rock layer that will also conduct the groundwater. Chemicals are used for drilling, and, among other things, the pressure exerted on the rock layer during drilling can lead to landslides and even minor earthquakes. Fear of consequences such as landslides, environmental pollution and damage to houses has led to protests against geothermal projects around the world, often with success. So-called near-surface geothermal energy is less dangerous. In this case, drilling is only 400 meters deep. At that depth, the temperatures are only 10 degrees Celsius, which is enough to heat houses. The principle, through a heat exchanger, the geothermal energy is transferred to a refrigerant. Because the refrigerant has a very low boiling point, it evaporates. This steam is compressed in a compressor and transferred to the heating system in another heat exchanger, where it heats or cools. However, electricity cannot be generated in this way. The share of geothermal energy in global energy production is still just 0.5%. So far, only a fraction of the enormous geothermal potential under our feet is being used.
Kenya is a leader in renewable energy generation. Geothermal energy already takes care of around 40% of Kenya's energy needs, and the sector is growing. The largest plant in Kenya, and for that matter in Africa, is located near Lake Naivasha. Eco Africa paid it a visit.
Plumes of vapour rise from Hell's Gate National Park in Kenya. 6 large geothermal plants have been built here, Olkaria 1 to 6. Initial explorations were carried out in the Rift Valley in 1950, but it wasn't until the 1980s that the Earth's heat could be harnessed, and technology has progressed a lot since. The Olkaria plants generate around 800 megawatts of power and are operated by largely state-owned company Kengen. Resource manager Cyrus Karangiti has been with the firm for 35 years. He says more energy can now be produced faster and for less, using smaller wellhead power plants.
The power plant, the wellhead power plant, you can install it within 6 months. The big plant behind us, you need that 6 months. So if you are to have many wellheads that are equal to the big plant, you'll be able to do it within 6 months.
The expansion of the geothermal plants has not gone without criticism. Indigenous Maasai communities were relocated and compensated with less land than they had before. And environmentalists say the park's wildlife has been and continues to be driven away by all the drilling and pipelines. Yet Kenya is banking on geothermal energy more than ever. Because with its many mostly extinct volcanoes, the Rift Valley still has plenty of untapped energy. According to government estimates, around 10,000 megawatts per year, enough for Kenya to achieve its goal of becoming carbon neutral. And in the Rift Valley, they don't have to drill that deep to access the steam, though it's still a pricey process.
The one well, 10,000 meters could cost you easily between $5 to $6 million. So the biggest challenge has been adequate financial resources to be able to expand more and more. So support is always, required from bilateral partners.
One of those bilateral partners is Germany. It's been supporting Kenya in the development of geothermal energy for years. In April 2023, Chancellor Olaf Scholz visited to arrange a further partnership worth some 70 million euros.
Kenya and Germany have entered a climate and development partnership. Support Kenya in reaching 100% renewable energy supplies and also support the country's adaptation to climate change.
Kenya's energy transition will continue to take time and money. Right now, it covers just under half of its electricity needs with geothermal energy. The rest comes from hydro, diesel and solar power. But it's pledged to produce 100% clean energy by 2030.
Geothermal energy has amazing potential and it's environmentally friendly too, as opposed to some other energy sources under the ground. I'm talking about fossil fuels like oil or coal, even peat, which has been used as a fuel source for centuries in Ireland. But people are beginning to change the way they think.
Abbeyleix Moor in central Ireland, 500 hectares of rough, tough wetland. A peat bog, navigable only on narrow boardwalks. Every time he crosses one, Chris East feels a rush of pride. 10 years ago, plans were afoot to begin large-scale peat extraction here, but residents formed a pressure group that bought the moor and rescued this important biotope from total destruction.
What makes this plant so unique is that it actually has this wonderful, wonderful water holding capacity. Up to 25 times in its own weight. And that is why it's so important. If we take that layer of live biodiversity off, then we emit carbon. That is a decomposted or semi-decomposted layer of plant material that contains the carbon. It oxidizes. It actually emits carbon then in droves, between 6 and 15 tons per hectare per annum.
Hardly any other landscape typifies Ireland more than its moorland. It covers 17% of the country, and intact moorland is a boon for a healthy environment. Worldwide, peat bogs store twice as much carbon as woodlands, even though they only comprise 3% of the total surface area. For decades, Ireland's peat was the country's prime energy source. In some regions, 25% of households still heat with it, but slowly people are beginning to change their ways. For many years, 50% state-owned company Bordna Mona extracted peat on an industrial scale, mainly to fuel 3 power stations. The last purely peat-burning power station was shut down in 2020. At the beginning of this year, the company announced its complete withdrawal from peat extraction. Pat Merlahan says that goes far enough. Because if the work of artisanal peat cutters was banned, It would put an end to a time-honoured tradition.
As a result of re-wetting by Bord na Móna, there will be loads of places for the carbon to be taken in, loads of bogs. So into the future, the small turf cutter is just going to keep the heritage and the culture alive. So I can't see any problem at all. And I think it's very important for future generations.
Tristram White of the Peatlands Conservation Council doesn't think it's as simple as that. Moors are essential biotopes. They're home to a lot of wildlife, birds, butterflies and other insect species that are unique to the bogs. He says even small-scale peat cutting is damaging to the environment.
While the small turf cutter has not had as much impact as the industrial extraction that's occurred across the Midlands over the last 100 years, it is certainly something that we all have to be mindful of, that when we actually drain to produce turf, we're still draining the entire bog, and that has implications for the species that are living there and all the insects and also the aquatic wildlife where the silt is running into the rivers of Ireland.
Happily, one thing is for sure. The times in which Ireland's peat bogs were the source of cheap and plentiful energy are finally over. Instead, awareness has grown of their irreplaceable benefits for climate and species protection.
Awareness is the name of the game, and not just in Ireland. Here in Nigeria, for example, a young IT expert is taking advantage of the increased interest in organic farming. She brings consumers and small farmers together. Remote farming is becoming increasingly popular and opening up new sustainable markets.
Agriculture is a big business in Nigeria. Whether you're plucking peppers or harvesting tomatoes, there's something for everyone's table and taste. But farming is also cool and becoming tech savvy. Now, you can even manage acres of land using nothing but your mobile phone. And Rebecca Amol is the brains behind the operation.
The Farm from Your Phone program was launched during the first outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was created to spur youth interest in agriculture and to also create empowerment for the masses, especially the youth.
Rebecca is actually a computer science graduate. She wanted to find a technological solution to farming inefficiencies after seeing her mother and other farmers battle for many years. She originally founded Ray and Mo Farms in 2016 to solve the post-harvest waste problem. But during COVID, she witnessed many Nigerians struggling to buy food.
The Farm from Your Phone program was launched during the first outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. It was created to spur youth interest in agriculture and to also create empowerment for the masses, especially the youth, and ensuring that they earn residual income from the comfort of their funds.
Rebecca co-founded the Africa Wealth Initiative with other young professionals to create the program that allows everyone to participate in farming and reap the benefits.
I put in because my money can actually work for me, having a reliable team do something and I get benefit out of it, which was lovely.
I subscribed to Farm from Your Phone because it is actually a side hustle for me. I can easily farm on my phone instead of going to farm to run things, and then I'm getting my income on it, and it's so beneficial.
The market for remote farming is booming, and Rebecca is making sure that quality control is her top priority. For instance, she and her team are keeping the use of pesticides to a minimum.
We carry out soil analysis, water analysis. We study prevalence pests around and the climate and the climate condition of a place. That helps us understand the balance that exists in that environment already. So that shows us and mirror the kind of organic process to follow to both reduce the attack of pests and to increase productivity.
And that's how you go farm to market in the 21st century. Rebecca and her team have made it easier than ever to become a farmer with a swipe of your finger instead of a sickle.
Great music. I can imagine the whales from the coast of South Africa would appreciate it. They also make their own music, and that's why whale watching is such a popular activity there.
They are really very incredible creatures. But over the last 10 years, drastic changes have been detected among whale populations. Global warming has life-threatening effects on these giants of the sea. Now, local scientists there have been observing the huge marine mammals for decades, so we paid them a visit to find out more.
Okay, calf's on the right. Hey, right here. Yo, a little guy, eh? There's mom. Wait, hold on. Mother's here. Fluke's under us. Yeah, just hold back.
Despite appearances, this is no conventional whale hunt. Matthew Germishuizen and his colleagues from the Mammal Research Institute at the University of Pretoria are trying to take scientific samples for the benefit of whale kind.
So in the arrow there's some barbs or hooks, and that hooks some of the skin or blubber.
So the skin is the black part, and then that is the blubber or the fatty part of the... So we use it for different analysis.
No, it's not painful at all. It feels probably like a bee sting or something, just like a quick sharp pain. And sometimes they just flip their tail up, but generally, as we saw, they normally just dive down, and then within a few minutes they don't really care.
The Bay of Hermanus, just east of Cape Town, is a winter base for many southern right whales. They migrate thousands of kilometers from their feeding grounds off Antarctica to calve in the sheltered waters. But the numbers coming to South Africa have been dropping for some time now. The researchers are trying to find out why. Back on land, the scientists return to the lab to process and label the skin samples and link the mothers with their calves. The samples are then frozen for further DNA analysis. GPS data of the whale's location is also logged into the system. Some whales are tagged with satellite transmitters, explains research manager Els van Meerlen. They provide insight into the mammal's movements.
For example, this female went with her calf to the Falkland Islands. Will her calf from now on do that always? Or will this calf be random and say, okay, but next year I'm just going to go to Crozet Island? We don't actually understand that pattern. So what we're doing now with another student is overlapping DNA with stable isotopes. So stable isotopes are basically markers in the skin that tell you where the animal's been feeding and what it's been feeding on.
The researchers have whaling station record books on file. After hunting pushed the southern right whale population to the brink of extinction, whaling was banned in South Africa in 1935, and the population was able to recover. But recent years have seen an alarming reversal, fewer whales, and a worrying development among the females in particular.
Looking at body condition, we see the females have gotten skinnier since the last 20 years, so something's drastically changed in the last decade.
Are the krill that whales feed on moving further south, or is there just less of it? No one really knows, but the researchers are sure that climate change has a big role to play. And locals know that if the whales stay away, it would be a disaster for the small town of Hermanus.
The whales, I would say, they are very significant for Hermanus. I would say they're the main driving force for traffic here. Everyone who comes here, they come looking for whales. It is important for tourism. It is the main driving force for tourism.
The pandemic restrictions hit hard, but Hermanus is now once again welcoming whale spotters from around the world.
I just love to see them when they dived and the tail come up.
It's such beauty and so peaceful, like I said, and we need to make sure we manage that. So I'm hoping the leaders of the world understand that, not just from a South African perspective, but just understand that climate change is affecting us all, and we need to do something about it and do something drastically about it too.
Matthew Germishuizen does not doubt that the oceans are changing due to climate change, but to discover how that is impacting on the whales, he will have to spend more time out at sea.
Joseph Bayanga is a radio manager right here in Kampala, Uganda. But he is best known for his commitment to improving street safety, especially for the children. He also promotes environmental protection and does so with body and soul.
Africa's cities are getting more and more crowded.
By 2050, the number of city dwellers is set to almost triple to 1.3 billion. And the city traffic chaos is growing along with them. Cars, buses and trucks are gridlocked everywhere, pumping out exhaust fumes. Lagos, Cairo, Accra and Johannesburg are among the most polluted African cities. The death rate due to air pollution in Africa is twice as high as the global average. Many cities on the continent are having trouble finding a solution. In Uganda's capital, Kampala, one man, Joseph Beyanga, is tired of it. The traffic in his city has cost many lives. Last year alone, some 1,600 pedestrians died in traffic accidents. In addition, many have died or gotten sick from the polluted air.
We have very many vehicles on the road, most of them not in a good condition. They are putting out fumes which are not good for even the people who are walking. We are living in a city whereby we are killing people every day. We need to rethink, implement, design a city that is safe for all.
The World Health Organization warns that Kampala's air quality is not within safe limits. So this morning, Joe Walker, as he is known on social media, is joining authorities in Kampala to promote non-motorized transport as a way of reducing emissions. The city planners are piloting temporary car-free zones.
So we felt it wise that if we can promote the non-motorized corridors, transport systems, and then we start encouraging it into our people, telling them how the benefits of those non-motorized kind of transportation will become good.
More than half of Kampala's population walks and cycles. This inspired authorities to adopt a framework of non-motorized transport in 2012. But it was not until 9 years later that a pilot car-free zone was commissioned in Kampala. It stretches for close to 2 kilometers. Beyanga says it's not enough for the city's population of more than 3 million.
One of the things I would love to see in Kampala is right from the entrance of the CBD, just the busiest zone, car-free zone. It should be car-free. If you are going to come into the city, the most you can do is cycle, just like our friends who are just cycling past us. Just cycle into the city. That is very safe for everybody. That is safe for people who are cycling. It's safe for the people who are within the city.
Many Ugandans associate driving with status. Beyanga wants to change the mindset that walking and cycling is only for the poor. He's spreading the message in schools.
Have an accident, they're called crashes. We have an accident and so many students got injured. And
some institutions like Makerere University have now introduced cleaner mobility to replace motorized transport on campus.
I must be me riding. Just wish how it would be, how it would look if these bikes were in the city. Imagine, oh, Kampala would be beautiful. Kampala would not be choking. Kampala would not be having the dirtiest air.
On and off the road, Beyanga is always campaigning for clean and safe mobility. As a professional broadcaster, he knows how to use the media effectively.
To leave other things. Each one of us has got something to do. Me, what I can do best is awareness. Yes. Raise awareness, point out the issues that need to be done, and let somebody do the intervention.
In February, Beyanga mobilized concerned citizens to embark on a 220-kilometer activism walk to the east of Kampala. The 6-day journey was his second attempt to complete hundreds of kilometers on foot. Participants enjoyed plenty of health benefits in the process.
I thought it was an interesting course to keep me in shape, but also walking helps me for my health. It gives me clarity of mind. But when you walk, you identify with people, what they like, how they behave, what their communities are like, things that you probably never have observed when you're driving.
Joe Walker is convinced that with small strides, he'll take the message far. One step at a time, he hopes to lead Uganda to a safe, brighter and cleaner path.
I hope that more people will be following in Joe Walker's footsteps. And that brings us to the very end of today's program. I hope you enjoyed it and will tune in again next week. This is Sandra Twidobdio right here from Uganda's capital, Kampala.
Until then, you can keep in touch with us through our social media channels. There's always something exciting to see there. Goodbye from me too, Chris Elems in Ogun State, Nigeria.